Joy Hakim, why did you start writing books?
Oh, for a lot of reasons. Partly, I have three children, and I was appalled by the books they had in school. I was also a newspaper reporter, and I was asked to cover a meeting I was writing for the Virginian Pilot in Norfolk. So I was asked to cover a meeting in Richmond, and the state school board had looked at textbooks. They actually had looked at English textbooks, and the English textbook that was most used in Virginia at the time had Romeo and Juliet in it, a very good choice. But the publisher had changed Shakespeare's words. Wherever Shakespeare used it, I know it's astonishing, a difficult or arcane word, the publisher had just changed it without noting that the changes had been made. So this is the kind of thing that's been going on in textbooks. So teachers were teaching Shakespeare, children were reading Shakespeare without knowing that they weren't actually doing that. So the state school board exploded, called a meeting, and asked publishers to send representatives with the idea of improving, this was about 20 years ago, improving school books. And so I was sent to cover it as a reporter. It was bizarre. The publisher sent their sales reps, and the sales reps are there to tell you how good the books are, not to do anything about them. And so after it was over, the state school board, the people were just appalled. I was appalled. And then when I came home and I had already read things about how bad, particularly American history books were. So I came home and started thinking, and I assumed everybody's calling for a good U.S. history. I assumed if I could write one, and I'd written some American history articles for the newspaper. For the Wall Street Journal, I wrote an article on Thomas Jefferson. I thought, all I have to do is write a good U.S. history, and the publishing world will fall at my feet. No, that was, no. But that's, there were a number of things, but that's the main reason I got started.
What kind of textbooks were your children bringing home that appalled you?
Terrible, terrible. One of my sons, Danny, brought home I'm a writer, so he brought home a world history. The writing was so incredibly bad. It was, actually it's the way we teach writing. Topic sentence, da-da-da-da, topic sentence, just terribly boring. So I was running around the house, screaming, how could they give me books? And we had to buy the books. I had to pay for this awful book. So Danny came home from school a few weeks later, and he said, Mom, you're going to be so pleased. And I said, why? He said, the teacher hates the books too, and he says he doesn't use it. I thought, I'm not sure that's the answer. I mean, why did I pay for this? What are they going to use? So yeah, I'd seen them I'd seen my children's school books. And also, there was a book written about 20 or so years ago by Frances Fitzgerald called America Revised. And it was serialized in the New Yorker. It got kind of wide play. And it was about history, American history textbooks, and how bad they were. And it compared the textbooks used. So this is a problem that's been going on for years now. Compared the textbooks used at that time with those written in 1910, early on. And there was a textbook, a standard textbook in American schools written by a guy named Muzzy. If you'd gone to school in 1912, 15, you would have read Muzzy. Muzzy was great. And Fitzgerald compared the books. And Muzzy is an intelligent person talking to kids as if they were intelligent people. So I went back and I read Muzzy. I read a guy named Coffin who wrote for little kids or middle school kids at the turn of the century, about 1900. It was great. I mean, these were people writing real books. Then the publishing industry took over, and also curricula changed in America, and for the worse. So we've kind of destroyed education.
And we'll talk about both those things, the textbook industry and the curricula. Mm-hmm. But your history of us, mm-hmm. the history of U.S., but it's us.
There's a pun there, as a 10-year-old told me.
And it's a 10-volume set.
Right.
What are the first words? Where do you start?
Well, it's chronological. So you start at book one. And the books are graduated. They get more difficult. The first books are fairly easy to read. And I feel that my readers will grow with me. And so the first book is about the first Americans, the people coming over the Bering Strait. And then you get the explorers, and then you get the Pilgrims, Puritans. And by the 10th book, I've just updated the 10th book. It'll be out in February, so we have chapters on Katrina, on Afghanistan, very difficult to write about now, about all kinds of current things. And so the ideas get more complex, too, as you get to the 10th book.
You start in 1600, though.
I start before 1600.
Before 1600.
With they say the people coming over the Bering Strait.
Right.
So we're not sure, 30,000 years ago, maybe.
And how do you cover that? How did you do your research?
Today I use the internet a lot, but books. Kids always ask me, where did you learn all this? Books, kids, books. I'm a big-time reader. In Virginia Beach, where I lived when I was writing that, you can take 15 books out from the library. I always had 15 books out, and I buy books and I underline. With the history books, I went to a lot of used bookstores. For history, you can do that. For science, you really can't. But yeah, I got my ideas for books, and then with each book, I had them read by an expert in the field. So just to make sure that I was up to date, I had some wonderful historians. When you're writing for kids, the best people want to help you. So I'm just the top people in the field read my manuscript.
You have a 10-volume set right now. How many of those were written before you found a publisher?
9.5.
Why?
Nobody. The publishing of U.S. history, or any history, publishing books are a huge scandal in this country. It's a big money-making affair for 3 publishers. When I got started, there were many more, but they've all been bought up. Fox News just did a series on textbooks, and it was pretty good. There are 3 publishers who last year split $4.5 billion between them. So school books are not about educating kids; they're about making money. It's a business.
You say 3 publishers of school textbooks.
Of school textbooks, yeah, K through 12. Houghton Mifflin, Pearson, and McGraw-Hill. And when you have a big business, if you get a contract to sell your books to Los Angeles, say, it's huge, and so you want to make sure there's nothing in the book that will offend anybody. If you have books like that, they're like oatmeal. But the really big scandal on textbooks is that the standard, and I want to make it clear that I'm talking about elementary and middle school. With American history, some of the high school books are quite good. But the standard textbooks are not written by the named authors. So when you have a book and you see on the cover an author from a prestigious university, the books are ghostwritten. I mean, we know that books by celebrities are ghostwritten, but college professors don't need ghostwriters. But the publishing industry buys these names, and then has kind of hack writers write the actual books.
Welcome to C-SPAN's Book TV's In Depth, and our guest this month is Joy Hakim. She is the author of the 10-volume series, A History of Us. She's also the author of a beginning series on science, The Joy of Science, The Story of Science, are 2 of the books that she's written. She's also the author of Freedom, A History of Us, which was a PBS special as well. We're going to put the numbers up on the screen in case you'd like to dial in and talk with Joy Hakim. 202 is our area code, 737-0001 for those of you in the East and Central time zones, 202-737-0002 for the Mountain and Pacific, and we've set aside a special line for students and educators because of Joy Hakim's expertise, 202-628-0205. If you would like to call in, you're a student or an educator, perhaps you've used her text, perhaps you've read her text. So go ahead and dial in. We'll begin taking those calls in just a few minutes. By the way, you can also email us at booktv@cspan.org or send us a tweet. Twitter.com, booktv is our Twitter address. You are quoted as saying that there's a lot of horse manure in history and our kids need to know about it.